Most beginning painters do not have a technique problem. They have a looking problem. Nobody taught them to see. They glance at a tree and the brain says green. Move on. But look carefully at any tree in real light, and green is almost the least of what you see. Warm yellow is in the sun, cool blue in the shadows, brown in the branches, white, actual white, reflecting off the leaves. That is what was there all along. The difference between a flat painting and a beautiful one begins right there, before the brush ever touches the canvas. Look at these trees and shrubs. Most people would reach for green and start painting, but look at where the light actually hits the upper branches. That is warm yellow, not green. Look into the shadowed interior. That is cool blue to charcoal. Look at the dark masses at the base. There's violet in there and even touches of gray. And where the branches or tree trunk are shown up at the top, there is brown and even gray there. And where the sun catches a leaf at just the right angle, that is nearly white. The camera recorded all of this. It was there all along. The problem is that the beginning painters mostly look without truly seeing the details. Nobody ever told them how to really see what they look at. I spent 50 years as a microsurgeon and ear surgeon. In that work, seeing accurately is not optional. What you observe determines every move your hands make, and a decision made on a false observation can make a patient lose their hearing. I brought that same discipline to painting when I returned to it in December of 2021. I also raised 3,000 orchid plants in a greenhouse I built onto my home in Louisville. You cannot tend 3,000 orchids without learning to read color and condition without assumption. Each plant signals its own needs through the specific quality of its leaves in the light. You learn to see what is actually there, not what you expect to see. Surgery, horticulture, painting, three completely different disciplines, one quality of seeing. Let me show you what I mean on one of my paintings. Look at this shadow here. Most beginning painters would reach for dark brown or black because that is what the brain says a shadow is. But look at what is actually in that shadow. There is blue reflected from the sky above it. There is warmth from the ground around it. There is brown, tan, slight greens, slight blues. There is a temperature shift from one edge of the shadow to the other. That is what makes a shadow feel real on a canvas, not darkness, color, specific, observed, decided upon color. Being raised on a farm in Kentucky, I learned to look carefully and see things relative to farm plants and animals very early. This same principle applies when you work from a photograph. No landscape photograph is entirely satisfactory as a subject matter without modification. The camera records everything in front of it without judgment. A telephone pole where a tree should be, a flat, colorless sky because the exposure was set for the landscape below, a cluttered foreground that draws the eye to the wrong place. Your job as a painter is to see through the photograph, to ask what the painting actually needs, and to make those decisions deliberately. The photograph names the scene, the painter sees through it. That is the difference between copying and painting. Once you start seeing this way, you cannot unsee it. The world gets richer. Every landscape you encounter becomes a painting waiting to happen. Not because you learned a new brushstroke, but because you finally learned to see. This is where we begin before a single brush is picked up. Subscribe, and I will show you how to get there.